just mentioned, my name is Steve Hosdovich. I am the Pennsylvania Campaigns Director. Before we get started with our program for tonight, I did want to thank all of you for continuing to be partners with us in the communities that we are organizing in, and for your continued support of events like this, which help our local efforts to protect our environment, health, economic well-being, and communities through organizing strong grassroots groups and coalitions that can hold our decision makers accountable. I want to send a special thanks to our sponsors for tonight's event and recognize them as well. Pittsburgh City Council member for District 8, Erica Strasburger, Seth Law Associates, which is a firm in the Pittsburgh area that provides strategic and informed immigration guidance, Judy Ruskowski and Ken Regal, the latter of whom is with Just Harvest, a local organization in the Pennsylvania area working to improve food access through addressing the root causes of hunger, and Pittsburgh United, another organization in the Pittsburgh area that we partner with, who is fighting to win progressive policy campaigns that ensure sustainable communities, raise standards for low-wage workers, and harness economic development and public investment for community benefit. We also have Beverly Walker, who is a member of our Southwestern Pennsylvania Steering Committee, Randy Walsh, who is also a member of our Southwest Pennsylvania Steering Committee, TJ and Susan Gobreski from our Southeastern PA Steering Committee, Billy Goldsmith from our Southeastern PA Steering Committee, Haji Malaman also from our Southeast PA Steering Committee, and then also Dawn and Jane Burke, Barb Murdoch, Andy Shea, Bill Toffey, Bob Wendelgas, and Eric Wilden. Thank you again. We really appreciate you being sponsors for tonight's event, and especially because the money we raise through events like this all go towards our local campaigns in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, and the victories and the progress that we're able to make on those. And I wanted to recap for all of you real shortly here some of the progress and victories we have had since we were able to last get together around this time in 2020, because it shows what we can accomplish when we are working and partnering together on things. In Pittsburgh, we helped pass an episodic rule in Allegheny County, which requires industry to scale back production during bad air quality days, and for the Allegheny County Health Department to improve the way they communicate with residents in impacted areas by these bad air quality days. We've recently been able to get a Pittsburgh Led Safety Law introduced. This is a law that is designed to address common pathways of lead in water, soil, dust, and paint that exist within our communities by going through improved inspection, remediation, demolition, and renovation practices. While this was just passed, we're looking forward to working over these next couple of months to actually get it implemented into law in the city of Pittsburgh. Our efforts this year also were around pressing the Wilkinsburg Penn Joint Water Authority that covers a little bit of the city of Pittsburgh as well as the eastern suburbs of Allegheny County. Our work around there was to press them to begin doing inventory and replacement of their lead service lines, something that has resulted in them applying for and receiving $9.3 million in state PennVest funds to replace roughly 1,000 lead service lines within their service area. Our focus, now that we've seen success there, has been shifted to trying to ensure that the replacements they're doing are done in an equitable way, starting in communities most impacted by lead poisoning within their service area, and working to set up a community lead response advisory committee that'll give residents a voice in how this project is done. Over in our Philadelphia office, we have 3 Hood to Waters tours set up. These are efforts to expose community leaders to resources at Philadelphia's premier outdoor education and experimental learning centers, including Bartram Gardens, the John Hines Natural Wildlife Refuge in Tinsicum, and the Cobbs Creek Environmental Center. It's also an opportunity for us to provide attendees with a chance to see model green stormwater infrastructure projects with the hopes of inspiring them for what can be done within their communities to better address stormwater overflow and flooding issues. We were able to press the Philadelphia Department of Public Health to finally draft regulations that will allow the city to implement their childhood blood lead level testing policy to ensure that we know where in Philadelphia children are still being exposed to lead, so that we can set up systems to help better ensure that the sources of that lead is remediated within those communities. Something that, again, over the next couple of months, we're looking to change from a draft to an actual implemented policy. And we'll be looking for support from our members and allies out in the Philadelphia area. We also ensured that Philadelphia's plastic bag ban went into effect in July after repeated attempts by our state legislature to preempt and delay any implementation. Now that the bag ban is finally into effect, we're working with Council Member Mark Squilla in the area to introduce an amendment that would implement a 15-cent fee on all single-use bags should the study being conducted by Philadelphia under the supervision of Mayor Kenny's administration find that bag usage is not declining by 80% around this time next year. This is extremely important because we've seen from experiences across the country, like in Chicago, that when you have a fee associated with this, you can achieve a reduction of 50% on all single-use bags within 6 months and an up to 80% reduction after the first year. In the absence of a fee, we've often seen the cost of free single-use alternatives be passed on to the consumer. And oftentimes this has a greater negative impact on some of the disproportionately served people within our communities. Again, something that has recently happened in Philadelphia that we'll be looking to gain greater support for going forward. So again, your support tonight has been extremely important. Zach has dropped in the chat a link to an additional donation page. I would encourage all of you to, if you can, make an additional donation to help us carry a lot of these projects through to the finish line. And also, I know you're all great supporters, but utilize the link to pass it off to friends and family members who also care deeply about the environment and the issues that we're working on and that you support, and encourage them to support this activity. It's really through your generous donations that we're going to be able to continue to see these types of victories, and come next year talk about some of the things that are in progress as actually finished and on the books and making a difference in our communities. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Meg in our Philadelphia office, who's going to start our part of the agenda that talks about some of the stormwater and green infrastructure work that we're doing in both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Meg, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve, and good evening, everyone. My name is Meg Open, and I am the Environmental Justice Organizer for Clean Water Action Philadelphia. And yes, as Steve mentioned, one of our upcoming projects in Philadelphia has to do with green stormwater infrastructure. And this is why we are very excited to share with you this video that shows the successful first 10 years of the 25-year stormwater management plan of Philadelphia Water Departments, of the Philadelphia Water Department. And this plan is called the Green City Clean Waters. The goal of this plan is to reduce the volume of stormwater runoff using nature-based solutions or green stormwater infrastructure. So for instance, building gardens on rooftops, which helps collect as much rainwater while at the same time providing fresher air for the neighborhoods. And this is a very crucial and timely project, given that we are experiencing an increasing intensity and frequency of flooding events in Philadelphia, as we have seen recently. And events such as this disproportionately impacts many of our underserved communities. So now, let us watch this video and hear from Philadelphia Water Department's Commissioner Randy Heyman and partners, including local community members, as they share to us why Green City Clean Water is not just an environmentally friendly solution, but it also helps alleviate a lot of the social and economic challenges we are facing here in Philadelphia.
When the city of Philadelphia established the Green City Clean Waters Initiative a decade ago, the world took notice. History was made with this 25-year plan to transform our local waterways using primarily neighborhood-based green stormwater infrastructure. In the last 10 years, our network of green infrastructure grew to include thousands of green stormwater tools with new trees and gardens at hundreds of sites. This was achieved thanks to robust participation from private partners and a strategic investment on public land like parks and streets. As a result, we will meet the 10-year goals set for us by state and federal regulations under the Clean Water Act. Our investment will prevent billions of gallons of sewer overflow pollution annually. This means cleaner rivers and streams in the watershed providing our drinking water. It means greener, healthier, more vibrant blocks where we live and work. For all the citizens of Philadelphia, it means a higher quality of life. We'll be reflecting on the last 10 years through the lens of partnerships, organizations, and residents, making it possible. Green City Clean Waters is going above and beyond its goals because of you, and we invite you to come celebrate the last 10 years. Get involved and follow us at Philly H2O.
Green City Clean Waters is an incredibly innovative stormwater management plan that is using nature-based approaches to meet federal Clean Water Act compliance. That innovation, that leadership is driving a best-in-class sector and industry in the city and in the region.
There's very few cities, not even just in America, but throughout the world, working on green infrastructure at this level that we see in the city of Philadelphia.
The beauty of the green stormwater infrastructure industry is that it covers a wide range of sectors. Everything from engineering to landscape contracting to material supply. And so there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of entry points for people with all levels of education, work history, and a lot of opportunity for advancement for all of those folks in all of those different sectors. So jobs in the GSI industry are growing at twice the rate of the average jobs growth rate in Philadelphia as a whole.
Before I learned about Philadelphia Water Department and its job opportunities, I was actually unemployed. Where I'm at today is definitely a career where I've been moving upward since I started. I love the fact that there's a sense of purpose in what I'm doing.
I take something home from work every day. That's things I never knew till I started here. Power Course opened my mind to a lot of things. This is one of the most excellent programs ever.
In 2019, 8 years into Green City Clean Waters, SPN did a study to measure the economic impact, and we found that it had a $55 million annual direct economic impact in the city, as well as a $34 million indirect and induced economic impact for the city of Philadelphia. We have an economic crisis and a climate crisis, which is disproportionately impacting low-income communities and communities of color. And over the last 10 years, Green City Clean Waters has proven to us that green stormwater infrastructure serves all of those challenges. Because when you're thinking about nature-based stormwater management, you're talking about environmental benefits like water quality and air quality, as well as social benefits like reduced crime, better community cohesion, improved parks and recreation spaces, and then you're talking about the economic benefits of opportunities for small businesses and family supporting jobs. As a way of thinking and doing that incorporates economic outcomes as well as social and environmental outcomes. So congratulations to the City of Philadelphia on a very impactful first 10 years of Green City Clean Waters.
Thank you, Meg, for that great video. Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis Devon, and I'm the West PA Organizing Director located here in Pittsburgh. A battle site, a mill site, a historic site. This area that we are going to visit shows just how a former steel site can be repurposed for the environment. As our infrastructure is compromised, We need to think of more green, environmentally friendly ways to engage our sites that we stay at and the places that we engage. And we're going to take a look at one of those areas that does just that.
Pump house located just a little bit outside of Pittsburgh, PA, and Homestead, PA. I want to take you on a little tour. Let's go.
Here is the bioswale. Installed in 2016 as part of the Pump House Parking Lot Improvement Project, the swale is a low-impact, high-result landscape element designed to be a water runoff system that provides an environmentally friendly alternative to storm sewers. Planted with native vegetation and mulch, the swale improves water quality by acting as a filter to remove silt and pollution from surface runoff water. The swale also allows for diversion of water away from the historic pump house. Monongahela is a Unami word meaning fallen banks. It was spoken by the Lenape people, indigenous people of the northeastern woodlands. The Monongahela has 6 locks and dams. It is 130 miles long and it runs through Pittsburgh and parts of West Virginia. It joins the Allegheny in Pittsburgh to form the Ohio River, and it has a vast history in playing its part in production of steel. And to this day, unfortunately, heavy industrial traffic is caused because the Monongahela is still used as a barge route carrying coke, iron, and steel to other plants that are still open. Pumps, pipes, and pressure. At the end of the 19th century, technology innovation at the Homestead Steel Works site had an increased need for water to cool and temper steel. This pump house number 1 out of 3, is the oldest pump house at the Homestead Steel Works. It supplied water to the original section of the mill. This pump house has a lot of history. It was this pump house that was present for the famous Homestead 1892 lockout and strike. Installed at the pump house in 2020, the 40-inch tall stack provides a source of green energy for the facility and is grid tied. The goal is to get the historic pump house site to net zero. Wind stacks produces and begins to store electricity at very low wind speeds. As the wind increases, the amount of electricity generated increases. Just like all wind turbines, factors like elevation above sea level, temperature, wind density, and barometric pressure affect power output. Unlike other wind turbines, wind stacks generates electricity for its internal controls and management system and stores that power to be used when it is needed. Clean, reliable power comes from batteries and inverters, not directly from the turbine generator.
And I hope to see you one day here at the pump house.
Hello, my name is Myron Arnowit. I'm the Pennsylvania Director for Clean Water Fund and Clean Water Action and work out of our Pittsburgh office where I live. For those of you in the Philadelphia area who are fans of Maurice Sampson, sorry to disappoint. He was going to do this introduction, but unfortunately, the last minute was not able to be with us tonight. But I'm a poor substitute, but I'm sure any disappointment you have will be taken away with our keynote speaker, Representative Donna Bullock. Representative Bullock is from Philadelphia, where she represents District 195 in the city. And she has a very long history of working for environmental justice, a focus of the next part of our program here. Environmental justice is something which at Clean Water Action and Clean Water Fund, we're increasingly centering our work around the idea that the structural racism in our society has an effect in many ways, and one of the ways is how it is determined who is impacted by the pollution that is being created here and across our planet. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Representative Donna Bullock. We're really glad to have her here.
Thank you for this invitation to join Clean Water Action this evening. I remember the first day my son's pediatrician told me he was concerned about the level of lead in his blood. I was scared, confused. How would this affect my son's development? Is this why he was such an active 2-year-old? What did we do wrong? My husband and I eventually found the culprit, the windowsill on which my mom permitted him to hone his art. Her windowsill was a masterpiece of scribble, scrabble, and stick figures and marker, Crayola and stickers, and old lead paint. So we followed the doctor's instructions, remediated the danger, increased his iron intake, and the lead in his blood leveled off. A year or two later, the Inquirer broke a story about a first grader who had much higher levels of lead in his blood. The culprit in that case were the lead chips falling from the ceiling on his desk at school. I was a newly elected official, and I knew nothing about the regulations surrounding lead, the government resources available to remediate the issue. I knew nothing about the many toxins that were plaguing our schools and homes, or about the air pollution or the environment in general. I didn't know where to start. My family didn't talk about the environment or climate change, or at least not in those terms. What I did know is that this was a space where I needed to act. So I read up. I met with environmental group after environmental group. At first, many of these groups wanted to talk to me about natural gas and fracking. I understood why, and I was a fast learner. But I didn't immediately connect to those issues. There was no connection to the toxins in our city schools, no connection to the air pollution in the city of Philadelphia. It just all sounded too far and too distant. It might as well have been whales and polar bears in the North Pole. Meanwhile, the children and teachers in our schools were being poisoned every day across the city. I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the places where my family and I and my neighbors lived, worked, and played, where we drank water, where we breathed our air. I wanted to talk about the people fighting to preserve community gardens while others illegally dumped across the street. I wanted to talk about the places where the elderly were sick or dying from heat waves because the temperature could jump just 5 degrees from one block to the next. The places that needed investments in storm water management and other environmental infrastructure. That's the environment work that I wanted to do. That's the environment work I wanted to talk about. So I met Jerome Shabazz at Cobbs Creek Environmental Center and Maurice Sampson at Clean Water Action, the first few people of color in this space that I ever saw. And we started to organize lead remediation workshops in my district. Then I met Moms Clean Air Force, and we found common ground when it came to the health of our children. So together, we all got to work. My journey in this space, in this fight for environmental justice, isn't much different from others. In fact, it isn't much different from the earlier waves of environmental justice advocates and others who helped coin the term environmental justice. It isn't different from those who fought for equitable environmental policies way before we had a term for it. And often I push back on this notion that Black and brown folks and low-income communities don't care about the environment. Of course we do. We always did. You know, when it comes to confronting the challenges of climate change, it is those communities that are there first and longest and fighting the hardest. They come to work on those issues, but not at the expense of the very immediate environmental dangers that pose a risk to our health, and their quality of life right now. We have to do both. Poor communities and communities of color don't have a choice. They are all too familiar with the impact of bad environmental policy. They often live near or adjacent to or in pollution plants, factories, incinerators. Our water sources are contaminated with chemical waste. Our children continue to be exposed by high levels of lead contamination from old pipes and paint in our homes, our schools. Our children have higher asthma rates from air pollution and other triggers. People of color, regardless of income, are 40% more likely to be exposed to air pollution than white folks. Simply put, when it comes to the air that we breathe, race matters. Poor communities and communities of color are also more likely to be impacted by and less likely to recover from climate-caused disasters. Consider the disparity in our government's response during the recovery efforts of Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Maria. In the aftermath of these weather-related disasters, these communities not only were shortchanged when it came to federal aid, they were also expected to pay more for basic necessities such as food, water, gas, and electricity. This is why communities of color and low-income communities overwhelmingly support measures to protect the environment and to address climate change specifically. Black and Latino Americans view global warming as a serious problem. We believe reduction of carbon pollution will create more and healthier jobs. We also know that the environment and pollution impact our families' health every single day. So no group has a monopoly on being an environmentalist. No group and no one's environmental cred should be judged by the donations they make or their memberships in one environmental group or another. We must all be in this together. And I mean together, including all voices. As chair of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, for me that means we have to address and focus on the historic and systemic inequities that have been created and perpetuated through legislation and policy. When it comes to environmental justice, those inequities intersect at almost every subject matter. Pennsylvania's #1 industry is agriculture, an industry built on stolen land and stolen labor, an industry built upon racism that has created substantial wealth for some at the expense of others. And as agriculture grows and faces the challenges of feeding an increasing global population, its impact on our ecosystem will disproportionately hurt workers of color and communities of color, while we are simultaneously locked out of the economic benefits. Transportation policy is no different. The placement of highways and byways and trainways and all kinds of roadways through our communities, through communities of color and low-income communities, have isolated them, cutting these communities off from healthcare, good schools, and good jobs, all while subjecting them to the pollution left behind as people traverse through them every single day. We can do the same analysis for education, healthcare, job creation, housing, and crime prevention. We can look at legislation before the General Assembly today and see this as an opportunity to do things differently, to be critical of the environmental impacts of every piece. Do an environmental impact statement for every piece of legislation. How great would that be to understand how we can be intentional and not symbolic, calculated and coordinated in the steps towards an inclusive environmental policy, one in which Blacks, Latinx, and Native Americans and poor communities can get behind, because otherwise these policies look all too familiar. They are similar to those who have sidelined us or devalued our voices in the past. Last week, the governor's executive order and the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus's legislative package on environmental justice was a step in the right direction. But there is more work to do. My son is now in middle school, and his school has a reported asbestos problem. Classrooms are closed off from students and faculty. The school is an active construction site. Water fountains are inoperable. But even in my role as an elected official, I feel hopeless and helpless. Schools, parents, teachers, students, our calls for safe schools and healthy schools seems to fall on deaf ears as each day and each year another school is added to the list. And so I sit here every day and I send my son to school. And as I prepare these remarks, it hits me that this is the second time in his life that he has been exposed to deadly toxins, to an environmental hazard. And it is not an anomaly. It is the case for many children in the city of Philadelphia and across this Commonwealth. These children require us to work together towards achieving systemic, equitable, environmental justice, a safe and healthy Pennsylvania for all. That is the task. Thank you again for allowing me to share just a few words with you today.
Thank you, Representative Bullock. We appreciate the work that you've been doing to pursue environmental justice for all Pennsylvanians in our state legislature and in Philadelphia. And the recent legislation that's been introduced is something which we are very inspired by and look forward to fighting that fight as we move forward. I want to draw people's attention again to the chat where we've posted the link if there are folks who are able to make an additional donation to support this local work to pursue environmental justice in Pennsylvania. Please give what you can, and you should be able to access the page to donate on through the chat. We are now going to move to the award section of our program, and I'm going to pass this off to Joy from our Pittsburgh office.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Thank you, Myron. I'm really thrilled to be here today. I'm Joy Bronstein. I'm the Western PA Director of Policy and Development, and I'm playing this really important role tonight in this program of introducing our Dewey Award recipient. Jermaine Patterson, who is here on behalf of VCAN, is a holistic health and wellness coach, as well as a community health worker for Women for a Healthy Environment. So she's a colleague of ours. Jermaine lives in Clairton, PA, which is an environmental justice community in the Mon Valley. For those of you on the eastern side of our Commonwealth and that might not know this area, this is the area south of Pittsburgh with a long, long history of industrial pollution and some of the worst air quality in the United States. And that air quality filters out and impacts all of Western Pennsylvania. Jermaine is a member and leader of Valley Clean Air Now, or VCAN, the recipient of this year's Dewey Award. And I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to introduce and award this to VCAN for their advocacy on behalf of the residents of Clairton and the rest of the Mon Valley and for clean air. Jermaine.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joy, for the introduction. And I want to thank Clean Water Action on behalf of VCAN for the award. VCAN exists for all of the reasons that Representative Bullock just mentioned. So we exist to inform, educate, and advocate for residents of the Mon Valley who are vastly being affected by the air pollution that surrounds them. U.S. Steel Clairton Works sits right smack dab at the bottom of the hill of Clairton. It's 0.6 miles away from the school. And so the community is largely infected by the air pollution in many ways. So VCAN is a voice for the community. We are the voice for the children. We are the voice for the seniors. We are the voice for individuals who whose health has been impacted by the air pollution. There are many children in Clairton who have a very high rate of asthma, and not to mention that Clairton is an EJ community as well. And not just Clairton is being affected, but the surrounding communities. There's a monitor, we call it the Liberty Monitor, and there are surrounding communities who are affected by the air pollution. So we are here, to organize and to help residents as much as we can. One of the things that we did in 2020 is that we were able to get a grant from the Heinz Foundation to get air filters out to residents. And unfortunately, we had over 200 applications that came through. However, we were only able to get air filters into 40 plus homes. So that just shows the need and the need because folks are suffering from the air pollution. So VCAN, Valley Clean Air Now is what it stands for. We are open to new members. There are only a handful of residents who are currently a part of VCAN, as well as some allies like Clean Water Action, Clean Air Action, One PA, as well as Women for a Healthy Environment. So we are there to assist residents. I myself, I've been here for 16 years. And just to put things in perspective with the air quality and how it affects residents, I've been here for 16 years. And I started working from home, right when the pandemic started. And I started to notice, changes in my health. Not anything similar to a lot of folks, but I can tell the difference in my breathing. And that's because I'm staying at home more. So that's just to put things in perspective as to what the industry and to what environmental exposures that are not of our fault are doing to residents. So VCAN thanks you. The members of VCAN, I'll just mention a few, Ms. Cheryl Hurt, Mr. and Mrs. Art Thomas, Cindy Roser, Fred Beckerman, Mr. Johnny Perryman, and there's a few more, but I just wanted to at least mention those members who I am speaking on behalf of. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. I would now like to turn this back over to Myron to award the Philadelphia presentations.
Okay, thanks. Actually, we're going to change up our program just slightly here on the fly. But Rep Bullock is here with us, and we wanted to ask her to just say a few comments since she is here.
Thank you, Myron. And I apologize that you had to watch all of those choppy faces of myself on that video. But thank you for this opportunity to just say a few words. I actually could not join you at the time of the remarks because I was having a environmental justice youth film screening with a group of young people from West Philly who created their own 4-minute video about environmental justice. So I look forward to sharing that work with the team at Clean Water and perhaps finding a way to bring those young people into this conversation. Just hearing Jermaine Patterson's words, we understand how important this work is, how important it is for all of us to work together. Thank you for the opportunity to say hello in person, and thank you, and I apologize for you having to watch a video of me in stop motion, it looks like. But I appreciate all of you. Clean Water Action, thank you for the work you're doing in our community. And if you can support their work, please do so. It is so important and so necessary here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you.
So we're going to now return to our regularly scheduled program, but thank you. Regardless of choppy video, your words are always inspiring, Representative Bullock. So we greatly appreciate you being here both live as well as through video, and for leading the charge on important environmental justice work that needs to be taking place at the state level, and are extremely excited to be partnering with you on that going forward. But in returning to our regularly scheduled program, I now have the honor of awarding our Jerry Balter Environmental Justice Award, which we typically present in Philadelphia during these events. And the award itself is named in memoriam of a forerunner to today's environmental justice movement. And it continues to honor those individuals and organizations that carry on that fight that Jerry had for this critical issue. And this year we are awarding it to the Mural Arts Project in Philadelphia. And Mural Arts Philadelphia is the nation's largest public art program. For over 35 years, Mural Arts has united artists and communities through a collaborative process rooted in the traditions of mural making to create art that transforms public spaces and individual lives. Mural Arts engages communities in 50 to 100 public art projects each year and maintains its growing collection through a restoration initiative. For us, they have been one of the most valuable allies in our efforts to reduce plastic pollution within the city of Philadelphia. Not only have they been with us at the ground level of that fight, but they have come up with creative ways to get the community to recognize the way plastic pollutes our communities in terms of blighting them, but also offers a danger to our environment. So with that, we are pleased to welcome 3 representatives from the Mural Arts Trash Academy tonight, and I'm going to kick it off initially to Shari to start that off.
Thank you very much. I'm the director of the Environmental Justice Department at Mural Arts and one of the originators of Trash Academy. We started in a vacant lot with neighbors in South Philly in 2015 who said their biggest concern was the trash. So first I'm going to introduce Ron White, who is the Trash Academy coordinator. He's one of the organizers and he started with us in 2016 and he's really the big thinker behind Trash Academy.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us and thanks for this award. We really appreciate it. I just want to say a few words about what Trash Academy does and what our goals are. What we really like to do is deepen people's perspectives by complicating the issue of trash and getting people to understand that it really goes beyond littering, which I think a lot of people are focused on because you see the littering, you see people throwing McDonald's bags out their windows, but we understand that the trash crisis is really a lot more complicated than that. We also use games, participatory research, and other fun interactive points of entry. We design projects and interventions to shift attitudes and prompt collective action around environmental justice. We also are interested in developing member leadership skills through public speaking and presenting, facilitating games and knowledge sharing. And we also work to support environmental justice movement building, especially focusing on grassroots movements. And we use the trash issue as an entry point into talking about environmental justice. And we realized that it's really easy to do here in Philadelphia because the trash issue is so connected with environmental justice when you look at what communities are littered, which ones are really struggling the most with illegal dumping, which communities are always dirty, always trashy. It's usually neighborhoods with Black and brown people, low income people. You don't see these things in the suburbs. We also have the issue of trash incineration. So about 40% of Philadelphia's trash is currently burned. And the largest incinerator in the country in Chester, PA, about half an hour from Philadelphia, and a 75% Black city, low income, multiple trash incinerators and other incinerators in the area. So we are really focusing right now on supporting Chester residents concerned for quality living. You can find them at chesterresidents.org. We are supporting them in their fight against this trash incinerator and really working to spread the awareness of trash incineration as an environmental justice issue that's impacting our whole entire region with bad air quality right now. And I'll pass it back to Shari.
All right, so thanks, Ron. Kyla Van Buren is also one of the Trash Academy organizers. Both these folks are activists. We work with activists and artists. So Kyla's going to tell you a little bit more about incineration.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just want to thank Clean Water Action and everyone for this award and recognizing the organizing that we did. And yeah, I feel like the Bring Your Own Bag campaign to raise awareness about the issue of plastic bags came from a process in Trash Academy where we started to want to address the issue of single-use plastics. And that was because we saw so much litter in Philly being made up of that single-use plastic. But as Ron pointed out, we're focusing on incineration now because even if we completely got rid of plastic bags, we still would have this giant trash problem. Like, so much trash is being created, even more so now in the pandemic and or post-pandemic. But yeah, we still need to figure out ways to reduce our waste as a city and to stop dumping it on our neighbors. And yeah, I feel like Ron pointed out the reasons why, and we just want to invite people into our ongoing community and network of people who are trying to face these issues. And if you know anyone who has an interest in joining Trash Academy or learning more about this incineration campaign, I will drop a Google form in the chat and definitely spread the word, because we really do need to just keep being connected around these issues that can seem sort of daunting when we face them on our own.
So the last thing I want to say before we go off the screen is that going back to the bag campaign, we actually hatched it in a collective meeting about what we should do. Each year we have a meeting, and both Nick Esposito, who was the former director of the Zero Waste and Litter Cabinet for Philly, and Maurice Sampson from Clean Water Action were at that meeting where we made the decision to focus on the bag campaign, because as you guys probably know, it was the third time the bill was introduced, but we worked on it for about a year and a half to 2 years together. And I just want to point out and thank Clean Water Action and Maurice Sampson's vision, because it was very important to have a environmental group, environmental org who was a part of the campaign. It was very important to have Nick Esposito in the city and Councilman Squilla supporting it. And then very important for Trash Academy to do the on the ground grassroots organizing. And we talked to over 5,000 people. And when we talked to them, we played games with them. So it was an in-depth conversation. And that is actually how we built a list of people who supported the action and how we knew that neighbors in Philly, it mattered so much to them. So it was that combination of grassroots organizing where we used art as a form of connection, someone in the city, and an environmental group. And I hope that we can use that formula again to create new successes around transforming our consumptive culture and extractive economy into something that's more circular and healthier for all of us. So thank you again to Clean Water Action. We really loved working with you.
Well, congratulations again to the Mirage Project. I know we value you as a partner in that effort as well, and the ability for us to partner together and achieve some of the stuff that we have in Philadelphia has been really exciting. And I know Maurice wishes he could be here tonight to have given you this award, personally because I know how much he values that partnership as well. One of the things about Clean Water Action that I think makes us unique, but is also very important to the way our organization works is our Canvas team. Our Canvas team is out there either going door to door, talking with residents and communities about environmental issues that they're facing and working to organize and get them engaged, or it's our phone canvas who's working to call our members to re-engage them around the environmental issues that we're working on and organizing them. Putting pressure on our decision makers is such an important part of how we can come to institute change. And you can't do that without having people regularly out there engaging residents of Pennsylvania. And our canvases do that tremendously. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge not only the work of all of our Canvas team in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, but also our Philadelphia Field Canvas Director, Ian Lauda, who is not available tonight because he's out pounding the pavement in Philadelphia, as well as our Phone Canvas Director, Karen Gauckham, who also could not be here tonight because he's hitting the phones and talking with people all across Pennsylvania. But in that vein of recognizing how important our Canvas is to our operations and the success of our organization, we have been giving out a Canvasser of the Year award to recognize individuals within our Canvas operations who have really gone above and beyond to help advance our work. And to introduce the Canvasser of the Year this year, I'm going to pass it off to Emily Moyer from our Field Canvas, or excuse me, our Phone Canvas team here in Pittsburgh.
Thanks, Steve. So, well, this year's Canvasser of the Year award goes to Mark Moore. Back in early 2020, while we were still in the office, Mark told me one day that his goal for himself was to be named Clean Water Action Canvasser of the Year. So, I mean, just having that aspiration showed me how much he was dedicated to his work and the organization. Sadly, Mark passed away in spring of this year, and he's not here to see himself achieve this goal. But Amy and their two sons are with us, Damien and Andrew. And I'd like to take a moment to tell them and all of you a little bit more about what we gained from having Mark on our team for almost 3 years. So Mark brought a lot of character to the office, was always true to himself, and worked very hard for causes he believed in, be it environmental or several other. And Mark was so passionate about getting to Canvas members that if a member asked him to call back the next day, he would be sure to call them 6 or 7 times until he was able to update the member on methane, lead pipes, or whatever issue we were working on. And that is the sort of gumption that effective movements are built on. These days, if I find myself worrying about bothering folks too much over the phone, I try to think about Mark and his tenacity. Besides being passionate about speaking with members, Mark also was really great at helping out our newer staff and making them feel at ease. He'd often offer up inspiring anecdotes about when he first joined our staff, like my favorite about how we almost had to let Mark go on his 3rd day, but he rallied and got his training benchmark 15 minutes before the shift ended. And that's just kind of the work ethic that he had. So having been part of the furry community, Mark helped us all to understand more about the furry fandom, even came into the office one evening as his persona, Thalen Chat Noir. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. And when I asked some of our fellow colleagues what they would say about Mark, they all mentioned his character. He really was one of a kind. He cared so deeply about his work, his family, his friends, and about making the world a better place. So we're giving this award to you, Amy, Damien, and Andrew. Thank you so much for sharing Mark with us. And thank you for hopping on here to watch your dad meet this goal of his. Amy, are you guys on here?
Yes, we're here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us.
I'm here. The boys are with their grandma.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thank you so much for making some time to join us.
Yes, and I do thank you. I know he would be greatly honored to be able to see that plaque, but he's here with us in spirit.
Sorry, give me
2021.
one.
Yeah, he passed away on May 8th. He died the day before Mother's Day.
Amy, could you please tell me your Zoom name? What is it showing up as? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find you and having.
He's showing up as Emily Moyer.
Ah, I got it.
Oh, she's actually the other one.
Okay.
We use the same link.
Okay, that. So they okay. You
come
want
on
me to
video,
start
please?
video? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not dressed for the occasion. I unfortunately had to work until I had to come on here. And I do apologize. I don't look the best right now, but I wanted to say, like, thank you. Like, I know Mark really loved his job. Like, he was so excited about everything, especially when he would talk about the different issues at home. Sometimes, like, I didn't necessarily understand what he was talking about, but he really had an awesome time working for you guys, whether it was in the office or even when he was at home. Like, he really enjoyed his job and he really enjoyed working on the different issues of letting people know what's happening in the world, because a lot of people don't know about all of these issues that are happening that's polluting our world, especially with water, especially with the soil and everything. But he really tried his best. Like, I know before, while he was sick, like, he was still even trying to work his hardest at work to help you guys, until he just got to the point where it wasn't manageable for him anymore to work anymore. I'm not sure quite what else to say, but I really do appreciate all that your group has done for him. And again, thank you.
Thanks, Amy. I guess we're turning it back over to Steve, or?
You are, yes. Thank you, Amy, and certainly thank Mark for all he has done. Mark was not just a fierce advocate on the phone for the environment, but a friend to many in the office and a part of the Clean Water Action family, and always will be. And I hope you and the kids feel the same way, that you're a part of our extended family here, and we really appreciate all that Mark did for us. I mean, it's tough to come off of that to sort of close our night, but I have the duty of doing so. So let me again, I want to first thank all of the staff on call today. Again, we've sort of insinuated this throughout, but our Eastern Pennsylvania Director, Marie Sampson, had an emergency that came up that prevented him from being with us, but certainly he is a valuable part of our programmatic team, as are the numerous people within our canvas that also are not able to join us tonight because they're out continuing the work of fighting to improve our environment and protect our health. And they all deserve recognition, even though we don't have the time necessarily to list them all. So let this be a thank you to all of them and our entire team for the work that they continue to do in the community. Let me again thank all of you for taking time out of your night to join us tonight to hear about some of the exciting projects that we are currently working on, that we have worked on over the past year, and to thank you for continuing to be partners with us in those efforts and to continue to provide financial support to ensure that we have the necessary resources in order to achieve the type of victories and progress on these projects that we've talked about here tonight. So before I cut you back to your lives, let me make one last pitch that, Hurricane Ida came through Pennsylvania several months ago and really gave us a tangible example of how poor our infrastructure is and how much flooding can impact our communities. So if you know and have experienced that type of impact, or you saw the solutions that we're fighting for in our green infrastructure videos, then take one more moment to use the link in the chat to make an additional donation. Or again, share that link with friends and family and encourage them to join and become Clean Water Action supporters as well. If you were inspired by what you heard, and I know you were, from Representative Bullock about the progress that we're beginning to undertake at the state level to really help uplift environmental justice communities by codifying some of the tools we have currently at the state level in place, like the Office of Environmental Justice within the Department of Environmental Protection, or even taking a step further through the legislation that she's been introducing that's going to give power to the DEP to say, if an industry is going to come into our communities or expand within our communities and have an adverse impact on the health of that community, they can have their permit rejected based solely on those grounds. And if the community is against this project because they fear for their health, the DEP can reject the permit based off of that as well. That's historical steps we are taking in Pennsylvania. If that inspires you, use that donation link that's in the chat to make an additional contribution, or send it to family and friends. Encourage them to make a contribution. Every little bit helps towards the fights that we're working on. And certainly another shout out to our grassroots partners, Valley Clean Air Now, and the work that they're doing to try to address environmental pollution in the Mon Valley suburbs of Pittsburgh. And the Mural Arts Project, working to help educate people on the impacts of trash within Philadelphia and partnering side by side with us and other allies in Philadelphia to reduce single-use plastics. If you're inspired by those fights, help us continue to stand by these grassroots allies so that we could actually achieve greater and bigger victories in these areas by utilizing the donation link that is in the chat to make a donation of whatever in your means. I thank you again from above my heart for being with us tonight, for all that you've done to help support Clean Water Action and our work. And I'm looking very forward to not only working with all of you and seeing all of you going forward here in what's remaining of 2021, but certainly 2022. And God willing, hopefully this time next year, we're finally able to get back to doing some of our in-person fundraising events that the virtual ones have taken place of, and can really come together and have good interactions and reconnect in person, and hopefully put this pandemic behind us. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful night.